Well,
Hello.
hey.
I am really excited to have you here and for everyone that has come on to watch as well. So this is totally out of my comfort zone. I've not done anything like this before. And I think back in May time, I had this idea and I thought the first person I'd really like to come on and kind of introduce to people is Jackie. So I met Jackie 12 years ago now. So when I was pregnant with my eldest and I went to an aquanatal class. And after the babies arrived, there was a group of us and we used to go and we would meet for coffee every week at the garden centre in Bicester and have a good natter and catch up and things. And yeah, so those heady days of maternity leave when you're just so tired trying to fit it all in. But that's also where we often make some really long-lasting friendships. Now, Jackie, you are amazing, Mum, but that has not been without challenges. And I think you've probably faced a lot more. My challenges have been like pooey nappies and sleepless nights, and you've faced a lot more than that. So I wondered if you want to just share a little bit about, because I think that goes a long way to how you're so empathetic and so very good at listening.
Thank you. Thanks for having me here this evening, Claire. It's really good to have the opportunity to just talk a bit about our journey together over the last 12 years. As Claire said, we met at an aquanatal class when I was pregnant with my second child in 2010. And I'd already by then got a 2-year-old as well. And Christopher was actually born in 2008, but he was 3 months premature. So he was actually born at 26 weeks plus 6 days. And that was a very difficult time for us, as you can imagine. And Chris is actually a twin, but unfortunately we lost his sister Ella after 19 days. So they were both fighting for their lives in the JR. Chris managed to pull through. And he's an amazing 13-year-old now. So that's a bit about my story, although I've also suffered from postnatal depression, which was particularly bad in 2010 after my daughter was born. And also I had purple psychosis, which is when you experience a real high. So as well as having the low of it later, as soon as my daughter was born, I had to be put on medication because I was in a psychotic state, which meant I couldn't breastfeed, which, you know, I'm sure you're aware has lots of implications as well when that's something that you're really wanting to do. So that's a bit about my story, which has sort of shaped what I do now.
Yeah, because you've had various different jobs, but the life coaching, that was something, you know, I hadn't really heard of before I met you. And so what attracted you to coaching?
Well, in 2014, when my second child was starting primary school, I was thinking I had a little bit more time. So I had a part-time job 2 days a week, which left me with 3 other days of the week. And so I undertook some coaching myself with a life coach, and it really transformed my relationship with my husband, which wasn't the reason I'd gone to have coaching, but actually it was like an amazing kind of byproduct of the coaching, that it really transformed our relationship by changing the way I behave rather than trying to change him. And as you know, it's not possible to change husbands, but it is possible to change.
I like you sometimes. He's probably not even watching right now, so he's really like. Yeah, well, you should be reading Harry Potter with my son, but yeah, there are some things I like to.
Most of the time you need to change yourself, and that's what transformed our relationship. It really made such a difference. So that got me hooked on the power of coaching. And then in my extra 3 days of the week, I decided to train to become a life coach and undertook a course to become a qualified life coach, and set up my business in 2016.
Brilliant. Yeah. So, yeah, well, I'll have to kind of admit what I thought life coaching was. I thought it was kind of, you know, one of those like really American things that maybe some sort of like sun-kissed Californian with lots of money paid somebody to say, oh, wear this complements your body, and you should have these colors and have these special juices and that, and sort of health kick stuff. And that's what I thought a life coach was. So I don't think I really paid attention, first of all, when I saw that you were doing sort of life coaching kind of things. I thought, oh, well, that's not really for me kind of thing. But actually, I think probably about the right time, I think I saw some post that you had on Facebook or something. And it was, and quite often it's when it's the right time that something clicks with you. Just like cars, like if you're looking at like to buy a car, suddenly that, you know, the car that you're looking at is everywhere you go. But I think you just kind of came along at the right time. So basically, I was coming to the end of maternity leave with my third, and trying to work out if I was going to go back to really busy, a job that I loved, but a really busy, stressful one, with the panic of trying to get back for, like, if it was my turn to do like pick up, and being tired on an evening, and saying, how do I juggle this with the kids? But then there was also security. If my mom's still watching, there's a pension. I think that would really still concern hers. Like, just all of those secure things, you know, days, you know, if you're sick, then you've got, you know, sick pay, you've got holiday pay. So all that kind of security side, and something that I enjoyed doing. Or did I just like leave, do my own business, have like the flexibility, be able to do more stuff with the kids, be around more, do something for me. And now it seems really obvious, but I talked to friends, I talked with my husband, I had spreadsheets, and then something popped up. And I think you had this like power hour thing where you could go and just like have an hour to kind of work things through. And you're so good at listening. And there's something very different about listening. I've got brilliant friends, which hopefully some of you there, I don't know who's on, but I hope some of you are there, who are brilliant at listening. We talk about everything, but it's very different to somebody who's trained. And you were able to pull things out that I was saying. So every time I talked about the job that I was in before, you'd say that I said something very positive, and then I'd say, but, you know, I've got great career, you know, progression prospects, but, and I finished everything with a but. I'd say something positive and finish it with a but. I hadn't even heard that. But it also pulled out, you know, various other things that for me to kind of look at that I didn't even think was something that I needed to sort, but surrounding things that went with it as well. And it was brilliant. And then that sorted me out. That's what I needed for a bit. And then because it worked so well, I think it was probably another year later, we had some one-to-one sessions, which were brilliant. It's great to focus just on me. The group coaching is a really lovely group that I'm in at the moment. Fantastically supportive, and it's not just a dilution of one-to-one. There's different dynamics, but having someone trained like you to kind of lead it through. And then we're going to come on and touch on it later. More recently, something called positive intelligence, which is not as zen and airy-fairy as it might sound. So am I typical of the kind of clients you have?
That's a good question. I think when I was in my training as a life coach, we had to do a role play at the end of the session. And I had a really clear picture that I was talking to mums in the playground, and that was how I did my role play. So that's where my passion for coaching mums came from, because I have a real heart for mums. Mums do such great jobs. They have to wear so many hats. They have a lot of responsibility, often in the home, often at work, often with the children. And you're carrying that mental load as well as all the logistics. And so I would say, every mum has similarities. Lots of mums really struggle with that juggle. So when to work, when not to work, when to spend time with your children, when to fit everything in, and just how to manage that juggle. So I think, Claire, you're typical in several ways. You have to make that big decision, and then you started your own business. And so there are similarities with every mum, but everybody is different as well. So quite often I find that mums put themselves last frequently, so they're not prioritizing their own care. And instead of calling it self-care, I like to call it essential maintenance, So my clients don't have me time, they have essential maintenance, which really puts it in its place. It talks about the importance of it. It talks about the regularity of it. And it's not selfish or something to be kind of tagged in the end when you've done everything. It's something to be prioritized so that you can function well as a mum, as a wife, as a daughter, as a friend. We do need to prioritize ourselves as well. So the coaching aspects looks at all of that very holistically. So I look at what's going on now, and then where do you want to be going forwards? What changes do you want to bring about?
Yeah. So I remember, I think you said to me once, you can't pour from an empty jug. So because you do, I think as a mum, just try to do everything else first. And I used to always think, oh, and there's never enough time. There literally is never enough time to get everything done. But as you start to look at things in different ways, then it definitely makes it much easier. But it's that time thing. So the time, that's always been the biggest pressure. And then it's like, what do you let go? And it is, as a mum, you tend to like deprioritize your stuff. Yeah. I desperately need my haircut. So I need to like rank that up list of getting done. But yeah, so it's tricky. So rather, I thought it would be really nice if you could share some of your tips, because I think the thing with you that makes a difference is that the things that you sort of lead and take mums through, you can almost give like a toolbox of like how to do things and how to make it. For me, it was about not just having like a one-off thing where you make a change and then you get busy and everything gets squished aside and you go back to where you are. It's a bit like diets that get started and finished and never quite finished and nothing quite works. But you've got very practical ways of things. It's not just that your coaching isn't just interesting, and how do you feel about that? It's actually, you feel like you can set some sort of goals and find ways to get there and blockages. So give us a good tip.
A good tip, I guess one thing that people are often thinking about at the start of the year is, people want to bring about change at the start of the year. It's a new start, it's a new term, there's a new year, and people talk about setting some goals or having some New Year's resolutions or bringing about change, and sometimes that can be a bit overwhelming. People join gyms and then by February they're not going, so there's this sort of a bit of chatter going on about that at this time of year. So I think one thing that I find is a really good way to kind of establish how things are going now is using a tool called a Wheel of Life. So if you Google it, you'll find a Wheel of Life. And it's a very kind of quick way to look at how fulfilled you feel in all the different areas of your life. So how fulfilled are you in your relationship? How fulfilled are you in your family? How fulfilled are you with your level of income or money, your money story? And that can be a really good snapshot as a starting point as to where things are. And it's a very pictorial thing, and it can take 2 minutes to do. It doesn't need to take very long. So I would really recommend, if you're thinking about bringing about some change and working out how to do that, start with a Wheel of Life to get really clear on how things are now. And then from that, there's different ways you can think about how you want to bring about change. And I think one of my favorite ways is to write a letter to yourself in the past tense, as if your year has already happened. So the letter is dated January 2023, and you talk about your year as if it's already happened. So you're bumping into a friend and he says, how's your 2022 year been? And so you start to talk about it in the past tense. And that just starts your brain to create some new neuro pathways as to the possibilities that you could bring during 2022. So it's not a list of goals, it's not a list of actions, it's not a list of shoulds, but it's a really beautiful, creative way to start thinking, how do I want to be in January 2023? What do I want to be doing? How am I caring for myself? how am I showing up as a mum? So I think just those two kind of simple tips can really kind of start to help you on a journey of bringing about the change that you desire.
I think sometimes it's that headspace thing, you know, when you're busy. And I like try to multitask everything, which I think probably isn't the way to do it. But I will be cooking dinner and I'll be thinking about, and I'll be just stuff going on all the time. And it's actually, if I then sit down, I find it quite difficult to then just sit down and go, I'm going to have some time to think now, because then your mind wanders all over. But I think that's a really good idea for almost kind of trying to get you to sit and sort of think about it, put something down, but without it being, and you're doing like enough goals for work and things like that. So then it's quite nice to have it in a different way. It'd be nice to look back and say, oh, looking forward to COVID is gone. So,
Yeah.
You know, you can dream as well.
Yeah, and I think, you know, again with the coaching, you're not being told by your coach what to do. So I don't give tips or suggestions or ideas to bring about change, because I firmly believe that each person knows the best way forward. So if you want to bring about the change, start to explore those things like the Wheel of Life and the letter to yourself, and begin to trust that you do know the way forward and you can bring about that change. It's just you might need a bit of help, like Claire says, to actually stop and think about it and give it the time, so that you can kind of allow that to surface. In the busyness of every day, you just don't get to it. You just don't. It's impossible.
And I think that's kind of what you really did for me, is sort of give me that headspace to sort of clear that fog of stuff and work out things. I remember each session I used to say, oh, we'd have a light bulb moment.
Yeah.
And I remember one of them, I mean, going along and I was really pleased, you know, I'd got a bit healthier and I've been doing this, and I just, you know, and you're like, and I was like, oh, and you said, how will it feel? And you're almost like, how will it feel when you've got to this? And I was like, oh, I just, no, I don't care, because I still won't be getting any sleep. And it was when my little one was still waking up every few hours through the night, and it had been, and he took so long before he'd sleep through it. And I was literally, and we're not talking like a few months here, I mean, he was like about 18 months or something. And I think I was just exhausted. You can't do anything when you're that exhausted. And it was this, I just had taken it as, well, this is what it is. This is out of my control. So it's not even, it wasn't even coming into my like zone of what I needed to do, because I didn't think of it as a controllable. It was just something I had to like deal with. And this kind of realization that actually nothing that I did would really feel okay when I'm just so exhausted. And I think I went home that day and I just started like reading and Googling all different types of ways of like sleep training, but what I felt would be right for me. So like a real extreme we didn't feel was going to be quite, but almost to take a concerted effort towards it. And he was sleeping through by, I think it was within 2 weeks of that get together with us.
I remember that session. And
so
you were really at your wit's end. You were absolutely exhausted. You were having to eat constantly. You were so drained.
Yeah,
and
I was like eating to try and keep on top of that, looking after, I had 2 other kids as well, and it just, but when there's so much going on, it's really difficult to like step back and see, and everything will become so obvious. That's the thing, that you think like, oh, how could I not get to that myself? But I guess and that's where your skill is, isn't it?
It is. It's bridging that gap where, you know, you are not getting to that level of thinking, and my job is to create a beautiful thinking place for you to do your thinking. That's my job.
But so I want to mention, I've just still got a bit of time. So game changer for me has been this positive intelligence I've kind of alluded to here and there and things. So I will say, like, hands up, I am not a self-help kind of book sort of person. Anything I've dipped in, had a look at, I'm kind of like, oh, they just take common sense, mix it all up, and give their own labels for it. But you know, it's kind of just rehashing what we actually kind of like know. This positive intelligence stuff, and it's not a self-help book thing, but it's what you've introduced me to. One of the things I really like is it's very much grounded in scientific research. I'm quite a sort of practical, down to earth sort of person, I would kind of feel, and I like to know why things are working, and so this so that it's based on this, and it's actually based on, you know, looking at the brain and how things work and why our brains work in certain ways, and then what it is that we can do. So we started looking into this a wee while ago, and it's making a big difference. I still got lots to work on, but I'm catching myself and stuff now, yeah, and it's good. And there's a little group of us, and I think everyone's sort of seeing the benefit. So maybe you'd explain a little bit more. You could probably explain better than me about the different parts of our brains and the way we sort of react to things.
Okay. Yep. So I've been trained by a coaching company in America called Positive Intelligence, and they are really inspired to use coaches to enable people to understand more about how their brain works. As humans, we're wired with a negativity bias, as I'm sure you're aware. You know, if something goes wrong, we're all over it negatively. And that seems to be our natural way. And what this coaching organization has developed is a really great way of accessing the positive parts of your brain, as well as the and kind of dealing with the negative parts. And the best way I find to describe it is that if you're faced with a decision, and that decision could be how to respond to your child when they're having a meltdown, and you're at a fork in the road, and you can either freak out along with them, which is the most natural thing for us to do, and you go down that path, which is a bit like a motorway, because that's the way you go every time your child freaks out. It makes you freak out, it triggers you, and you go down that motorway.
Time.
Yeah, dinner time.
Yeah.
And so what Positive Intelligence does is it helps you to get to that fork in the road, and instead of going down that motorway, you can pause and you can choose to go down a more dusty road, a little path that's not used as often, but that's by far the best way to react. And the motorway road is called your saboteurs. So we have saboteurs in the primitive part of our brain, and they hijack us, and they encourage us to keep going down that motorway, which is not the best way to react. But the other part of our brain, the prefrontal cortex, is our sage, and that's when you go down the dusty road. So that's when you respond really beautifully to your child who is having a meltdown, or who has lost something, or can't find their shoes or their socks in the morning, and you react beautifully. And the way Positive Intelligence works is it strengthens those sage muscles in your brain, so that more frequently you're choosing that sage path, and less times you're going down that motorway.
Yeah, and I think it's that thing of sort of trying to retrain your brain, and it's that sort of natural thing. The sort of negative things were the things that, you know, prehistorically sort of kept us safe as humans.
Yeah.
And, you know, the whole sort of fight or flight and all of that kind of stuff. So there's other ways to kind of like react. And it's not about sort of being walked over or being, you know, subdued or anything like that. It's just, you know, a different way to get results, or to react to things, to deal with things. But it does take a bit of work to kind of rewire yourself, because it's in those like more stressful situations, you know, and it could be at work, it could be with a mother-in-law. I don't think she's on Facebook. Yeah. So it's like, so yeah, it could be anything. Those kind of situations where it's more stressful is when everything, you know, logical kind of goes out the window normally anyway. Anything you learn, you'd be like, oh yes, well, I would deal with it by doing this. And then when you're in it, obviously it's quite different. So
So it really helps you to pause. So it gives you an opportunity to pause and make a choice. So no one's telling you what to do, but you are working out the best way forward. And the way to strengthen those sage muscles is to do some types, they call it PQ, so positive quotient. So that's how strong your muscles are. Repetitions, so things like grounding your awareness on physical touch or sound or your breathing. So it's looking at ways to build those muscles so that when you've got a big meeting that you're coming up with and you're nervous about that, you can center yourself by doing some PQ reps to enable you to operate out of your sage rather than your saboteurs.
Yeah. And it's a great way just to stop spinning sometimes as well when you've got an awful lot going on. So what I thought I'd like to mention, because I know Jackie probably never mentioned it, but Jackie has a free webinar on the 10th of February. So is that 2 weeks today, 10th of February?
Yes.
Yeah, 2 weeks today, 10th of February, 8:30, and it's free. So it's a little bit, if you're interested, and I really would recommend finding out more. I'm definitely not an airy fairy person, and this is definitely working and making a difference for me. So 2 weeks, and it's 8:30. And what I'm going to do is put in the comments in a minute, because I don't know how to multitask that when I'm using all this techie stuff at the moment, a link for how you can register. So sorry, I just thought that was like a kid sneaking in for a minute, but it's all right. So I put a link in the comments. You click on that, and then you just put your details in to register, don't you? No one will be able to see you. You can just come in, find out about everything. And so I would definitely recommend it. So you've got absolutely nothing to lose by going along to something that's free. So there we go. So I was going to say, I haven't had any comments, or there's maybe been comments and I haven't got the techie stuff working. If anyone's got any comments at the minute, you want to ask Jackie a question, you will pop up as a video, so don't worry about that. Stick it in the comments, or even just put like a hi or something like that, so you know someone's there. So I think there are a few people still here at the moment. Or if you've got a question to Jackie about anything, or come back later. Jackie come in, she's lovely like that. She'll come in and check comments. If you're watching this on catch up and you missed something, or you want to ask about sort of wheel of life, or a challenge or something like that, stick it in the comments. Oh, hi Lou, I did see it. Now I know that it actually works, and that's great. Thank you very much. Yeah, come back, anyone ask questions, and we'll leave it there then. So that's what
just to say, if anyone does want to work with me either one-to-one, part of my group coaching program, which is the Mum Boardroom, then do drop me a message and we can just have a quick chat with no obligation. So there's lots of different kind of touch points to work with me. As you know, most people don't do everything like Claire has, but Claire's done one-to-one Mum Boardroom, and now she's on the PQ program. So not everyone does that. So there's lots of different ways to work.
See a worth. I get a worth out of stuff. I don't do it all at the same time either. It's been spread out over our times and things like that. Also, one thing I'd say is I have a bit of a thing. I quite like emailing people, or just going and looking at their website and things like that. And sometimes I feel like if I talk to someone, I'm going to get sucked into, they're going to make me feel uncomfortable about something other. Jackie's not like that. Jackie just she'll talk, you find out. And actually, if you're choosing a life coach or someone that you're going to work with like that, you got to feel that you've got some kind of connection. So it might be that you just think, no, that's not quite right. And Jackie's not going to be like send you an email every 6 hours going, do you want to follow up? So, and if and people get busy, or sometimes it's just not quite the right time. So it's finding that time when you want to focus on you and make a change. So if you're really busy, really stressed, and it feels like the wrong time, it's probably the right time.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you so much for coming on. I think I'm gonna be giving this a go for anyone around, so we'll get some different people come on. So there's a lovely person called Anne, who I think she's watching later, who's a celebrant from Bluebell naming ceremony. So she's going to come and have a chat, and I've got a few other people sort of lined up, and I'll definitely, if you come back, I'll have you back as well, because you've got lots you can share with us.
I'd love to. That would be great. Thank you for having me on as your first person in this latest journey. So that's great. Thank you.
Brilliant. I feel like I'm on the BBC with the ticker. Right. Okay, everyone. I'm going to go and have a glass of wine now. And have a good weekend. Bye for now.
Bye.